I know. Yeah. Is the volume all the way up to me now?
I turned it all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right. So you should be able to hear it, right?
you do a test and I'll see if, yep.
Yeah, test, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test.
I don't know who texted me.
They don't text back, they probably.
All right. Can Ruth Tompkin turn off her mic and camera on the Zoom? That might help.
Can Ruth
Tompkin,
Tompkin turn off her camera and audio on the Zoom, please?
How do I do that? Let's see.
now we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
So I mentioned the tribute garden in $5 million. There are 3 other very generous in November to get $1 million or more already as well. So we have made progress in the quiet phase, but we still need a few more large gifts before we go. Now for the really bad news, once we go public, watch out. We're coming after you too. Maybe it'll be a raffle, I don't know. We're gonna probably sell something there. So I just said that because I know now nobody will want to talk to me. They'll be running the hill. So that's the first thing, how we make the money and what it's going to cost to do this. The second piece is important, how are you going to operate it once it's been renovated, right? It doesn't do much good to renovate everything and then not be able to actually have the money in the fund. So we've done budgets of what we think it's going to cost. sort of illustrative of all the things that the days for. There obviously there's a lot of grounds, building maintenance associated with, especially grounds and park. And so we've been planning on how we're going to support it. There are going to be events, ticket sales, and rentals that will support some part, but that's not going to be a huge portion of it. A lot of the programming in the building will be done by local nonprofits who do that kind of programming, whether a drama company or whatever it may be. So it won't be paid for that. That helps, and they may also help with some funds to support the activities that they're engaged in the building. We'll be seeking grant and foundation support already. And then the kindergarten again has committed a pretty big chunk of its endowment for the next 20 years to support operating costs. And yes, at first that's going to be about 40% of the operating costs of the budget is. It's a little bit of a complicated formula, but if our assets go up, it will be more than 40%. Yeah. So that's kind of the financial picture. I'm going to now turn to each project a little bit, starting with the Thorne building. This is a beautiful Michael Stone right here. I'm sure you're going to see it again tonight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the history of this a little bit and talk about some of the programming we have in the building. So starting with the history, January 2017, then Mayor Rod Brown convened a group of local citizens to talk about what to do with the Thorne building. And that group met several times, considered a lot of ideas, but in the end, the idea was, okay, let's turn it into a community center and let's form a 501c3 nonprofit owned and operated. So that was done. That entity then in turn announced the Thorne building planning committee. And that was made up of representatives from all walks of life here in Millbrook, arts groups, citizens, elected officials, business people, clergy, educators, philanthropic organizations. And you might remember, a lot of you were in the room, when we did it, we hired a consultant and we had a series of public meetings, community, to talk about what good uses of the building would be. The planning committee came out with a report and made the following recommendations. First, to serve as a platform for existing nonprofit programs. So we don't want to keep the existing nonprofit programs. We want to give them a place to do their program, to offer what they want to offer. Okay? We want to act as a magnet for downtown Millbrook. So we'll be attracting people into town. Hopefully those people eat in our local restaurants, so on and imagine. They wanted us to be flexible in terms of how we designed it, because they were finding that the tastes change and activities change over time. And this is going to last a long time, flexible, able to accommodate those kinds of changes. Also, just in the present day, that the spaces should be somewhat flexible, that you might want to have a theater, the dining room. And they recommended that we fundraise in two stages. One was to preserve the exterior renovations, and the other was then raising the interior renovation. But they didn't know, we already got a lot of discussions. So now it's a little bit different. First fundraising will be the asbestos out, and the second part will be for the interior and exterior renovation. All right, so since that recommendation was made, the 501c3 has done a lot of work. We negotiated a contract with the village to acquire the building. That's where we're going to spend that whole dollar. We cleared the famous Thorne family conversion forms. And I think it's a Michael Stone. His family did this that time. Yeah.
They should be able to see this. They just can't see
Said
it.
if the town ever stopped using this building, ever stopped using this school, that property would revert to the Thorne family. So we had, that's on the title, right? So we needed obviously a clear title. And so we took on this big exercise and found something like 80 to 90 different Thorne family members around the world that would be the heirs for this. And they all had to sign a release and get it notarized and send it back. And we went to court. Yes. The judge said, okay, we got about 45 of them. He said, okay, that's enough. We're good. And he put it back. So that was always a big issue with the Thorne building, something that people couldn't really figure out a way to get around. So that was a big deal with that. We got village planning board approval for zoning change. We ever have a community center there. Larry Shapiro over there, it's our representative design and hopefully construction of the project. And we hired Michael Sloan, descendant of the people who actually donated the building as our architect for the project. So that's where we stand right now. I'm going to share a little bit of some of the ideas around the program that came out of the planning committee that Michael built his plans around. He shows you those designs later. You'll see how this. So there's a great auditorium there. If you really want to turn that into a performing arts center, the idea is that you can have drama, dance, music concerts, big lectures, film series. I'd love to see us with the Man Opera Live on Thursday night or whatever it is, and be able to broadcast that. So, a really vibrant theater that everybody knows in general go and see things back. It also is easily converted into a large town banquet hall. I will show you. So that's indeed with that flexibility need. But there's a lot more here, and I get almost more excited about this page. The school system here, we spend time talking about, they don't have resources that provide really bridging the digital divide, right? Which is cutting edge computers and technology, programming classes and the like for kids, and what I call help for the rest of us who want somebody to keep us on our iPad. So we'll have a technology center. The lure for the kids is going to be this video game room right next to it. They'll go there and play games, but then we'll travel the next couple days. Smart classrooms, which will be basically a facility for local businesses or nonprofits to use. Smart classrooms where you'll have to work, video broadcast, cafe lectures, or whatever. And you've got a blackboard, a whiteboard, rather that broadcast online and the like. So you can almost engage in a classroom environment or a meeting environment in one place with people all over the world. An instructional kitchen, this is there's a lot of people who want to have cooking classes and also give the ability for people at farm to table that facility they can use to package their produce or whatever they prepare it. So there's a nice kitchen facility, a culinary facility there. We have an art studio, painting classes, art classes, a variety of different age groups. We have a music studio and practice rooms. One of the problems that people have with these music lessons is, they have to in their homes or maybe places to go and let's practice rooms there. We'll have a studio where you can record things. One of the things that's come up is a lot of local businesses that have websites, want to have people recording on their websites, not be able to talk, have what else be available for them as well. And some shared office space, kind of like a little resource center, where people who don't have office, but like to, carry on business or whatever, can come and rent space. One of the big, beautiful front rooms will be a gallery space, so we'll have a variety of art shows, but other types of exhibits as well. And finally, probably most important, we will have ample outdoor parking. And Michael will go over the parking site plan. So next steps from the Thorne building. We almost closed on the purchase of the building today, but there was an issue with transfer documents, and we'll probably close on it next week. Live in the village, that's great. The second unit, it's not your problem. And that's actually could be very meaningful for the taxpayers to go over there and get it. phase one asbestos removal, we're targeting to get started by August 31st. Larry, I think that's a 4 or 5 month project or so, maybe a little longer.
It won't go beyond that.
And next phase then also includes doing construction drawings, so going from design, construction drawings, and going out to bid for the actual renovation, interior and exterior. And then obviously we've got to complete raising the money to build those. So that's Thorne family bought, that was because the fire owners had not paid the property taxes for a long time. They were about to be foreclosed on by the county. The issue if the county foreclosed on them, they would have auctioned off that land parcel by parcel. And some of the buildings were subdivided into condo buildings like Carroll Hall. So they had very little parcel plots. Carroll Hall, parcel.
Can they hear anything?
And if somebody was bought one of those for next to nothing at auction, and they would be a property owner right in the middle of that property, and we've been able to hold anybody out that wanted to do something nice. So we didn't want that to happen, so we stepped in and we bought that 28 acres. The goal always was to create a public park. The issue was that sort of our vision of the park had one big problem. The tennis court and pool in along the Bennett Commons. We wanted to have that whole greenway out there as a place we could have big events. So we talked to the Bennett Commons folks, with a long conversation, but finally in August of 2020, we reached an agreement where we swapped land with them. So they gave us the pool and tennis court 2.2 acres. We gave them 2.2 acres up next to their condos. And we gave them some money to replace their tennis court and pool. So that transaction's done. And that really sprung us to be able to start this project again, which is why we're hearing about it now. So let's quickly talk about the progress since we agreed with the condo association. The tribute garden and Thorne's donated 32 acres. And remember, we bought 28. Thorne's already owns 4 acres just to the north of that 28. So we're throwing that into the park as well. So in all, the park will be a 32 acre park.
Could you please ask people to mute themselves on
Yes.
Zoom? Thank
So
you.
on Zoom, if you don't mind, if you can mute yourself, you just have to click on that microphone and put a little line through it. And it'll be really handy for everybody. Otherwise, we're probably echoing like that.
You're having trouble hearing otherwise.
So we hired Vertex, and Kevin is here from Vertex to talk about the project. They're an environmental engineering firm that oversees different demolition projects like this one. They're very experienced, and they have worked with us to come up with a whole demolition plan and hire the people that are going to do that. And Kevin, the next presentation will go through that. We've retained our design, a local landscape architecture firm to help us design what the park's going to look like once we demolish the buildings. I'm going to give you a glimpse in a minute, but the subject will change. We don't really know what you have until the buildings come down. So we need to work around that a little bit. Demolition, I believe we're permitted now, Larry, or not quite?
Almost there.
Almost there. We're scheduled to start the setup for some demolition on Monday. Okay, so this is like our future thing. This is going to start happening very, very soon. So this is the sneak peek of the park. And I'm just gonna go through this a little bit by bit. I'll start with a little bit of a walkthrough verbally. The first renovation is gonna include pathways, a parking lot. I'll show you where all this stuff is in a moment. Benches and lighting. It's not gonna be super fancy, but it's gonna be a lot nicer than what's there now. And it'll be, a nice place to go walk and take the dog and, run around, etc. We do have thoughts about future enhancements. And they're going to be a matter of conversation with the Bennett area community and the rest of the village about where we want to put things. So, the band shell, it will be at the Thorne building for some time, but maybe it'd be nice to have that down with Bennett, especially with that easy access to Bennett campus. And maybe a bike path to the village sometime. Bennett alums are saying, how about a little Bennett college tribute? Something for the memories. And event parking. So these are all things that could be added later. We often get asked about the stone foundations of House Hall and those arches that are very pretty. We're going to try and save something. It's hard. We can't leave something that's structurally unsound there and might fall on somebody else. So if it's safe and not contaminated, we're going to try and do something with those stones. So this is a little bit of a call out. See if I can come over here. We're pulling out this little piece here. And this is Carroll Boulevard. This is where Alumni Hall is, housing all day. And the idea is that these will be sort of a paved path here that runs around. This is a parking lot. So people can come in here and actually park and use the park. It's about 25 spaces. We're thinking of a little sort of garden up on top of where House Hall was. And then this great lawn where the pool and tennis court used to be, etc. And, we have a lot of events in Millbrook that happen up on the green next to the Thorne building. But they're kind of crowded there. And parking's not good, and it's tough with Franklin Avenue. Well, maybe some of those can be down here under this great lawn. Right? So that's the first part. So moving now, moving now to this middle part. Here's where we were. There's the parking lot. Trails going up and around, and you can walk around all this. This sort of shady knoll area will have some park, benches and the like. You get a very pretty view from there. There's a little amphitheater actually still up there. It's buried right now, but that's the place where you could have, the poetry group that have their poetry readings. Little performances that can happen up there. It'd be pretty nice. And then going forward, this is now we're up here in this northern piece, and we're gonna have more. There's a dirt or maybe wood chip paths that go through the woods. There's a pond here, a little dam, and some streams that run through. And so this is Franklin Avenue. You actually be able to enter it right here below the road of the village river there, and come in, get down into the park that way. This is the old rail trail here, the railroad bed. It's sort of a manifest destiny in the green would be that someday we could actually have that run up here to the village green and be able to walk down or bicycle down or launch it down to the college. So that's sort of a high level view. And like I said, this first phase, it's not a really elaborate part, but it's really nice. So that's it for my presentation. And we're going to take questions and answers for a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. So please. Yeah.
I have a question. It says 21 million. Is that how's that divided between the two properties? And are you putting the park first?
The money going to both first, because we want to start the discussions with the work with one building as well. So in total budget, it's about a third of the park, but 2/3 roughly.
The same people who did it. Could you repeat the questions they asked?
Okay, yeah, so the question was, how does the 21 million get split between one building and the park? And I said roughly a third, 2/3, park third, one building. Yes.
There used to be a sidewalk that went all the way down.
Well, so the question is, there was a sidewalk from the village down to Bennett, and will that come back? So I'm just gonna walk over this, this used to be Route 82 through Bennett, okay? So it wasn't a sidewalk, it was a highway. This roughly follows with that sidewalk, it kind of came in down here, it's a little bit lower, that's about where. So, yeah, and then the sidewalk is sidewalk by the road, you know, it'd be nice to improve that over what it is now.
It'll be safe for kids to walk there.
This, yes, this would. The question was, would it be safe for kids to walk? The idea would be that path would. Some road bridges over the streams. So. Yeah.
I was a little late, maybe, how are you gonna raise that?
We talked about this capital, we are not, have not launched the formal campaign yet, we're in the quiet phase of the campaign. The campaign is gonna be ultimately announced with $20 million. We've got $5 million was submitted by the tribute government. 3 others have committed to $1 million, multi-million-dollar gifts. So we're doing all right, but we need more big gifts. And we want to get to the point where we're very secure that we're going to get there. Then we'll announce the public campaign event. We're going to go around and sell raffle tickets and whatever it takes to get the rest of it. Anybody else? We'll hang around. Go ahead. I'm going to ask Larry to answer the asbestos at Bennett will be covered in a lot of detail by Kevin in the next presentation. The Thorne building is a little, it's not going to be covered today. So Larry, you might just quickly talk about the removal there and the lead.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, so the question was, what about lead and asbestos in these buildings? We're going to answer the Bennett question very definitively on that point. Can you just talk about whether there's lead and asbestos in the Thorne building? And how we remove it.
So we've engaged a environmental engineer as well for the Thorne building. And there are specifications that have been written up. We went out for competitive bidding and we have a successful contract. So it will be also a controlled removal of all the contaminated materials in the building. Does that answer the question? Are there any other questions?
One thing I'd say is that this presentation about how we're going to do Bennett, we gave you a good idea of how far we're going. Not as bad. This building here is a complete disaster, and Kevin will cover that. One building is actually easier than that, but it'll be similar to the other buildings. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin from Vertex. I don't know why you're walking back and forth. I'm sorry. Who's going to cover how we're going to demolish it. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a reminder also for the Zoom people, that you can just keep those mics muted, please. Really kind of pop back on. Good evening. My name is Kevin Seats. I work for a company called Vertex. We are a environmental engineering consulting company. We handle a lot of these demolition site projects. We also handle a lot of insurance claims for all of the environmental contaminants that you might run into related to any of your buildings. This is basically what we do. We have been in business since 1995, and we've got a long-standing relationship with Larry, which is how we ended up working with the partnership on stuff. So, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're doing with the demolition process here. With any luck, this will be the entertaining part of this entire process. My job is to make this extremely boring and disappointing for anybody that wants to stand at the fence and walk. The big eyesore that we have to address is the housing mall complex. I'm going to get into that in some detail here, but obviously the buildings are in some rough condition. Since it was abandoned in about 78, pipes have burst, the weather has gotten to it, it's dilapidated. If we did nothing, these buildings would be coming down on their own eventually. So what we're talking about is the Halcyon Hall complex here in the dark blue, the large building. There's the smaller chapel, we have Carroll Hall, and then we have the science building, music and design up on the hill. There's a dance building, and then there's an abandoned house with a association garage. We're going to knock those all down over the course of the next few months. The intent is basically to clear the land to build the park. All of these structures on the portions of the property that we're giving over to the condo association are going to be completely removed down to virgin soil. There will be nothing left of the buildings over there. With very minor exceptions, water service, there's a sewer line, and then critically, we're trying to save as much of that architectural stonework to be incorporated into the final park design. So where we can leave stone that looks nice and serves a good purpose, we will do that. On the park side, our intent is to knock down all of the buildings. We will poke holes through the building foundations to allow for drainage. And then we're going to crush the concrete, and we're going to put the concrete, the brick, any of the ugly stone is going to get placed into those basements. It'll get capped with topsoil and seed as an interim control. And then ultimately that crushed concrete material will be used to regrade the park and add drainage or whatever needs to be done. But at that point, all of the contaminants will be gone from the buildings. So the big concern that everybody's probably focused on with the college is the presence of asbestos. Over the years, there have been multiple asbestos surveys done on the various buildings on the campus. And at this point, we've got a pretty good handle on where it all is. And most of it seems to be floor tiles in the various buildings. So there is pipe insulation, there's boiler insulation that we'll have to address. But for the most part, in the buildings that are not the boiler plant or even the steam tunnel, we're taking out the floor tiles and the fluid sources. Speaking of the boiler plant, at this point, we have been told that all of the oil tanks have been properly closed and removed from the property. We are prepared if we find one or two to do that closure. So we will certify that they're clean, get them pulled out, close them out with the town and the state. We'll handle all of that. Inside the buildings, we still have the remaining standard issue buildings and cabinets. You have mercury in your thermostats. You have heavy metals in your fluorescent light fixtures. You have emergency lighting has lead acid batteries. Part of our gutting of the various buildings to prep them for demo is to retrieve all of that universal hazardous waste type stuff. And then the one challenge we're going to have with the science building is we believe it's currently fully stocked as a science lab. We're going to get all of that out. So we're not going to just drop the building. We're going to make sure everything gets cleaned out before we go. Photo on the left is kind of a typical interior asbestos abatement project. Sending the guys in with moon suits, bunny suits, whatever you want to call them, respirators, letting everything down. Again, we're basically going after some piping, a lot of floor tiles, and some gaskets. And we have to take this project in two separate directions. We have most of the buildings, and then we have the housing hall building. For the majority of the buildings, we're going to do this traditional asbestos removal. The buildings will get encased in plastic, otherwise it's going to work. Get encased in plastic, we'll send the guys in to do the controlled removal. Should be nice and simple, because the floor tiles just want to pop up. The pipe insulation wants to fall off. Due to safety concerns and rotting building structure, we're not going to send people into the housing hall mansion complex. There's just no way. So our goal here is to have no impact to the community at large, but certainly the condo association. So we want to make sure everybody's protected. We're using licensed contractors. We have independent air monitoring firms, also licensed by the state to make sure that everything is running smoothly. We're running air samples to make sure everything is safe. The way the contractors are going to go about this, we're going to have a decontamination unit for each of the work areas. And it's probably going to be mobile. I know that they're planning on bringing a trailer in. It's going to kind of look like a horse trailer or a landscaper trailer. In there, they've got one of these decontamination units. We have clean rooms, shower rooms, all the areas where they need to store their equipment. As they go in and out of each one of these areas to do their asbestos removal, they will be cleaned before they come out of the buildings. And the whole thing is going to be under a vacuum with filtered air going out the other end. So there's no tracking contaminants out through this decon, and the air is getting filled.
So Kevin, can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
Just so everyone's aware, the question was asked what we were doing at the Thorne building. It will be the exact same process as Kevin is describing right now for these buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the Zoom people, that same process, that interior asbestos abatement removal process is going to happen at the Thorne building. So on that one, they're probably going to set up their decontamination unit inside, so you won't even see the trailer on the outside. But inside, this is generally what's going to happen. We are, on the left, we're looking at some people removing floor coverings. They're in there with basically just glorified ice scrapers, scraping up the floor tiles. The guys on the bottom are picking up those tiles that have been popped up. The guys in the upper right have a wonderful job of scraping up the glue that held them down. It's nothing super going on inside of this. That's what it looks like. So with that elaborate setup, I'm sorry, let me go quickly jump to the photo in the bottom right here. On top of Alumni Hall, which is that concrete building that sticks off the side of the housing hall complex, the roof up there is made out of these concrete panels, the corrugated concrete. That's a material, it's an asbestos material. So we are going to have guys up on the roof, basically prying those loose, lowering them to the ground, wrapping them up, packaging them, walking them. So you will see something like that with that particular one. Like I said, we're going to be doing the perimeter air monitoring to make sure that nothing is escaping from the buildings as we're doing the asbestos removal. We'll have those results on site usually within 24, 48 hours of the time the building is collected. If there is a problem, our job is to interpret the results and then come up with corrective action. If we're starting to see any fibers coming through the plastic, we're going to ramp up the vacuum. We're going to have them increase the use of water. If we have to, we will shut them down and just get it right. So possibly sealing up the plastic, finding holes. Like I said, we can't do this process on housing home. There's just no safe way. The alumni building is fine, it's concrete, but the rest of the building wants to go. So for this, we're gonna take the approach of just using really long reach excavators. Something called a high reach. Again, with this process, under the New York State Code, they specify exactly what has to be done. Industrial Code Rule 56, Section 11.5 says how to demo a building with asbestos stuff in place. That's what we're doing. Generally, what's going to happen is they're going to come in with that big excavator. We're going to use dust control measures. It's going to be a combination of fire hoses, these what they call a dust boss type machine. It's just a screen of water mist. And it's going to shoot up in the air all around the perimeter, and it'll knock down any fibers that come off as they knock into the building. When he's reaching in with the excavator arm, the fire hose will be directly on where he's working, or immediately below him as needed. But these things will handle the perimeter dust control. Once we get the building down, all of the stone, brick, concrete, we're going to save that. We're going to reuse it on site. It's going to minimize the number of truckloads of waste that we're sending out from the facility. Right? So traffic on Bennett Way is concerned. We're targeting maybe 10 truckloads a day is our objective here. We want to be minimally invasive, but at some point we're going to have to send waste out. That waste that we're sending is the wooden framing from the Halcyon Hall complex. All of that waste is going to be packaged as asbestos contaminant. That's part of our requirement under the industrial code rule. Everything has to be wet. Everything has to be sealed in shipping containers, labeled as going off to a licensed landfill. All of this steel, anything that we can recycle, going out for recycling. Talk about the stockpiles going to be reused. For the time being, we're leaving up the fencing around the site. That's just basically keep everybody out. The machinery is extremely unforgiving for anybody that gets in its way. So we need our space. Contractors are going to come in along Bennett Way up to the gate that's here on the existing driveway. And we're going to set up a staging area here. It's probably going to be the office trailer, the bathroom, the decon trailer when it's not attached to a particular building. They're going to park their equipment there. We're going to load our trucks. That's our base of operations. When the time comes and we move up the hill, we will have a remote area over here where we'll also stage some gear, the trailers, maybe a second portage on whatever we have. Again, the objective is everything in the property transfer area is getting completely removed. There are steam tunnels. We're going after those. We're going to rip it all out. But when we get onto the park property, everything is going out to 3 feet below grade, and then it's going to kind of get backfilled with that building. It's basic operations with packaging the asbestos waste. All of this is happening basically right at the building where we're doing the removal, and they're going to bring out bags of asbestos waste. They're going to put them in lockable storage containers. That's just a roll off, and those get sent off to the licensed landfills. The second option, and this is going to happen for the wood framing and stuff, it's going to go again, a roll off container. It's got to be sealed in plastic. We're going to have placards on these that say dangerous asbestos keep out. These will get wrapped up, sealed up, and carted off the road. Vertex is going to be providing the demolition oversight role. We are the ones that are going to take all the complaints. So, in advance, I'm sure there won't be any. But we are coordinating both Sky Contracting, who is the demolition and paving contractor, and then we have the third-party air monitor under our contract, making sure that we have accurate air samples.
We don't burn file, right?
Sorry?
No burn file.
No, there are no burn piles in the asbestos of the demo world. Like I said, we have Sky Contracting was selected by the community partnership. We have vetted them. They are a fully qualified, experienced demolition and abatement contractor. Most recently, they did the demolition of the old Kingston High School. That wrapped up, I think, last November. They've given us a list of similar contracts. I've worked with them for probably 10+ years, and they're fully qualified. Actually, that was the end of my presentation. I know we have some questions. I'm gonna just, I saw the hand over here go up first. Great question. The question was, how much of the demolition is weather dependent and what is our time frame? So we're looking to hopefully start mobilizing equipment at least early next week. Once we get the equipment on site, and that could be the decon trailer plus whatever additional supplies, we are cleared by the state to start the abatement as early as Monday. We do have to wait right now. There's a labor shortage in the industry, especially since most of the asbestos casualties in the schools. But I think we're going to be starting probably mid-August with the actual asbestos removal. We will probably have all of the asbestos removed from the property late October, possibly early November. One thing I didn't mention, and it may not be so much of an issue for this group, but we're not starting demolition of the housing mall complex until the condo is done using their pool. It's basically end of September. Yes. Yes, so the asbestos abatement, we're looking at late October, targeting late October. The demolition should be done right about the beginning of January. That'll be all structures flat, all concrete crushed, and then capped with that topsoil. Go. Got another question over there?
Your monitoring, so can you explain more about how monitoring is done around the site? And also, is that data going to be publicly available?
I'll do the first part first. So the question was an overview of the asbestos air monitoring process. Basically what that happened, how that happens is there's a licensed New York State asbestos project monitor. Their job is to come through, inspect the work areas before, during, and after the asbestos removal occurs. One of the things they'll do is run background air samples. And the air samples are basically a little cassette. Inside of that cassette is a filter media that they pull a certain amount of air through. Knowing that volume of air that they pull through it, they look at that filter and they can calculate how many fibers per liter of air were present. The analysis of that, it has to go off to a lab to get put under a microscope. And that's part of that 24 to 48 hour turnaround time. By the time they get off to the lab, it takes time for them to analyze it and take the results. And then we have not discussed publicizing any data. That's something that we could potentially do. We have to discuss some of those ourselves.
And Kevin just mentioned that there's full-time monitor.
Yes. So yes, that's one of the requirements of the asbestos project monitor by law. Anytime there's asbestos removal going on, that monitor has to be on on site, and they're basically responsible for overseeing what the contractors do. They have the legal authority and contractual authority to shut down the contract. So they will be here making sure everything is running smoothly. And that contractor is somebody out of, so, I see another question in the back over here, and then we'll go, I see you over there.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're gonna use a fire hose.
Yes.
Bait, what happens to the effluent for lead paint?
Okay, so it's two separate components here. The fire hose is going to be used for just dust suppression. We're not going to wash down the building with the fire hose. It's basically just misting the material as it's getting up. The effluent from that process is going into the building foundation. All the drainage is going into the foundation. When we are done on the condo complex side, we will be removing the foundation plus the soil immediately. It's just about an inch or so before all of that is silted out. As far as lead-based paint goes, all of the waste from the mansion complex is getting shipped off-site. That's going to get characterized by the waste disposal company, and it's going off to inappropriate. On the other buildings, there has been testing done. We do not have an extreme amount of lead-based paint out here enough to cause any contamination to the soil. So when those buildings get crushed into their own footprint, it will basically be stabilized on that concrete, and it's not going to.
Let's just clarify that when you say crushed into the footprint of the building, that it is concrete and masonry units that will be crushed, not wood particles.
Correct, yes. The only materials going into the building footprints are concrete, brick, and hopefully not too much, but some stone.
And we hope to utilize that as controlled fill when we develop the park.
I have a question back here.
My question was also about the water.
Same general question. Did I answer it?
It will end up in the stream, it'll all be.
No, nothing's going in the stream, correct. Yeah, I'm sorry, I worried about that. Nothing's going into the stream, it's all going into the building footprints, getting captured. We're letting the soil do the filtering on. Nice. Any other questions? I got one more, I got two more over here. I see you in the back. We'll go with front first. Until it's gone, it's, so the question was, how, assuming 10 trucks per day, how long will it take to load that? At this point, I'm not quite sure how much of that building will fit in any particular dumpster. We're hoping to have everything completely off-site by that early January date. We're going to probably start knocking that down and loading it out early October. So I would say you're probably looking at into November with loading out all those containers. Yeah. So, okay, the question was, when are the people around town going to be notified of the demolition process so that anybody with allergies or whatever can stay inside? We're not, basically, we're going to be doing some level of asbestos abatement from mid-October, from mid-August until the end of October. And it's probably going to be occurring almost daily. So as far as the dates, there's not a better notification we can give you than that. It will occur almost daily during that window. However, as far as allergy sufferers and anybody that is concerned, our air monitoring is the method of protection to make sure that nothing is escaping the buildings or the property. So we are required to do that dust suppression to keep the air clean.
Thank you, Kevin. As the project progresses, we will update the schedule on our website on a weekly basis. So if anybody wants to check the schedule, you can check our website on a weekly basis.
So no, it's just locally. We're not going to do an extended air sampling project through the town. It's if we're not getting elevated reading right next to the buildings, there is no reason to expand sampling into the town. It's not really going to go more than 5-10 feet beyond the building. At that point, we will have detected it and we will have stopped it and change our approach as needed. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got one question in the black shirt in the back. What is happening with the traffic?
Chapel.
The chapel. The chapel is scheduled for demolition also. No, all of these buildings have gotten really rotten. It may look okay on the outside, but structurally, the beams inside and everything is completely rotted out. Flooring is missing. There's really not a way to tell. Got a question in the back? Okay, so the question was about the rebar as we're taking the buildings down. We're salvaging the rebar. The rebar has to get pulled out to. Yeah, so they're going to crush that concrete down to like 6-inch size chunks, and they're going to pull the rebar out. There's actually enough scrap value to really make that worth their while to do that. So yes, yeah, we're removing that rebar. Also, we don't want it left. Nobody wants the landscape with rebar. It's just. Okay, I got another question.
I noticed that the trees that we shipped out to the licensed landfill. You know where that licensed landfill is?
I believe right now the landfill that they're targeting is in Ohio. Markets change, so as we get into that October timeframe, they may have a different one that's offering a cheaper price, but right now we're planning on going to Ohio. Go. Questions? Okay, all yours.
All right. One little announcement, which is if you're online on Zoom and you want to give us your email address, here you've got a little card you can fill out at the third front door here. But if you want to get a card to us, you can go to Wayland Real Estate and look for Teresa Cox on Frankfurt Avenue, and she will give you a card you can fill out right there with your address to email URL updates. So with that, I'd like to introduce great local architect, Michael Sloan, who's done all kinds of different buildings over the years, from large institutional homes, everything else, extremely experienced. We went through a very competitive process of picking Michael, and he came out trying to start from that. We're really thrilled to have him work with us. We've been working together through COVID. I haven't seen Michael here after. I've been on Zoom with him about every week. So I want to introduce Michael and have show you the design.
And go quick. Welcome everybody, and welcome everybody who's on Zoom watching. Yes, I'm Michael Sloan from Sloan Architects. We were the architects selected to do work on the Thorne, not just the building, but also the Thorne site. And I'm going to use this time to walk you through, really give you an explanation of what's actually gonna happen on this property and with the building. It's. So this right here is the Thorne property, and here's the green that we all know. Building is located here. One of the, before I get to the building, I'll kind of walk you through the whole site plan. In terms of parking, right now, you can, one just drive back to, the back parking lot, church also uses. But that wasn't adequate for this project, so one of what we're proposing here is to cut into the lawn area with additional parking. And this parking is not just a large parking lot, but it's going to be landscaped nicely, it's actually terrace. So it's actually at a little higher level than this parking lot. With landscaping mixed in, so it's not going to feel like a big sea of asphalt. The green itself, it's going to change from what it is there today. There's an existing band shell that we all know that's up top of the hill here. When you're looking at that, it's really backwards. For a band shell to really function nicely is to have lawn seating that, just like a feeder, cheers up from the band shell, better viewing and sound. So what we propose is actually to build a new band shell, almost an existing one, really new band shell that's actually more open in area than the concrete bunker that we have today. That still has the performance qualities of the curved back wall and curved ceiling to project the sound out. And the lawn, we're going to be doing some regrading on the lawn to create that nice amphitheater type lawn seating area for the band shell. It's not, as you know, it's not that steep site, so it'll be a nice gentle lawn. The playground currently is right here, and we're proposing to actually move it down closer to the church in relationship to the child care center. And that also opens up kind of the main viewing angle for the performance of the band shell. Another feature that we were proposing for this project is right now there's an open lawn here. A little signage right here, with one building, but it's just an open lawn that's been used in the past for a tent structure for events such as the carnival. But what's interesting about this property is the exact width of the building is the exact same dimension to the sidewalk down to within a quarter of an inch, which was amazing. So we actually think that was actually planned because this building is a neoclassical building and things of that nature were part of that type of architecture. So we took advantage of that perfect square and created a small community garden that's really a public space for small social gathering. Person wants to go there and have a quiet lunch. So we have some small ornamental trees with park benches, kind of just so that you can maybe have a little string quartet there in the evening if it's not large enough event for the band shell. It's just a nice community space. It's kind of, we have a community center building that has a lot of indoor activities we're about to go on. And bringing that concept out to the lawn area in front of the building was important, we felt. We're also introducing a new path from the intersection that will lead one either to the garden or to the main entrance, which is really not used today. And we're going to refurbish that and restore it as the main entrance to the building. We are also going to be demolishing that handicap ramp that's right here. That ramp is not compliant with code for accessibility. It's too narrow, and there's other issues with it. So we're going to demolish that ramp, and we're going to create a new ramp that actually slopes down to a new door here. It's going to bring one into a lower elevator stair tower that will bring someone, somebody with access issues to the elevator to bring up to any floor in the building. And one of the things that historic preservation is actually one of the only times you can do this, only if the person to the front door. But because of the historic building, they don't want to compromise the outside of the building with a ramp. And so this is the only time it's permitted is with a listed historic building. One building is. And we're also going to be redoing all part-time parking spaces directly across from the ramp. The other features of the things don't retain all be maintained and do safety crosswalks from one from the building to one area walks and introduce. The next part of the project is how you enter the secondary entrance, second side entrance to the building, which has the theater vestibule area. So on this, we are the chair is actually built with as much asbestos in the structure. Two, it impedes fire truck access to the building. It's too narrow, creates too narrow pathway along the road. So what we're proposing is demolish the existing entryway and build a new entryway. Also, another part of the building is the main front door is actually too narrow for people need to egress the building code. So what we're proposing is a code compliant that meets the egress requirements for a building that's going to have assembly events. It's a much higher requirement for people to egress the building in case there is an emergency. As you see, we are not trying to duplicate the architecture of the original building with this. We are actually intentionally trying to make it look pleasing with the building, but look like a new structure, so one knows historically from a preservation point where the old ends and where the new begins. As part of that, park service requirements for a project of this nature. The outside of the building is going to be fully restored. The bricks will be repointed, all the masonry cracks that are throughout the base of the building will all be repaired. The chimneys, which are in bad shape, will actually be completely rebuilt. So they'll be taken down, the bricks will be salvaged and then reconstructed. Right now, the actual caps will deteriorate to the point they're actually falling in and be brought off. The roof itself, we are removing all, actually the asphalt roofs right now. We're not going to remove the building right now entirely. We are going to be removing the fire area. But we'll be removing all the fire escapes on the building. They don't apply to code and they're also non-historical. So those features will be gone, and so the building will be dramatically cleaned up visually. All the windows are actually in fantastic shape. We actually brought in a window specialist from Martin Windows. And they actually look closely at each window, and the only windows we have to replace are windows up in the dormers on the third floor of the base. Those windows are actually replacement windows and they use for windows. But the main windows, all these beautiful windows with the tracery buttons in the windows are the only thing they need is to be straight sanded and reglazed in places. And that's it. They fully function, they work great, and there's no reason to replace them. So I'm going to now walk you through the historical basement and work your way up. How we approached this project was we looked at each floor as on a different activity levels for each floor. The basement has become kind of our activities in terms of I don't think school home ec. It's the more active things such as music, cooking, art, computer classroom. This is the gaming room. So it's going to be great for after school programs. That's going to happen down here. But I'll walk through this visual space. Right here is what we're proposing is a teaching kitchen. And what I mean by a teaching kitchen is it's going to have desks, smart boards, TV monitors, Somebody could teach a class, the instructor might not even be in the room, the instructor might be somebody broadcasting in through technology on the screens. It could be a live person in the kitchen area teaching the class, so, schools can wrap around on this side. These are just like stainless steel work counters. But in the teaching kitchen itself, it's not just a teaching kitchen, it's also serving as a catering kitchen for the Thorne building. So when there is a public event, like a gala, a wedding, or some other type of event like that, this space can be used as for the caterers to do to serve those events. It is not going to be designed as a production kitchen. It's not going to be like a full restaurant kitchen, crank out meals. But it can also be used for if a group wants to come in and do the canning of farm to table, canning of tomatoes and things of that nature in the wet cooking area. That can happen. It is going to have cooking, ovens and warming up into the stove for it to function. But again, it's not production. Over here is the wash area, and we have a prep area. That's the wet cooking area, the dry cooking area. Down here, we have an proposed art classroom that has a movable partition, so it can be one big room or it can be broken down into two smaller classrooms. Give more flexibility, a lot of clip space in each wall. We're actually going to this actually is a current large bathroom. This will be moved today, but we'll be cutting in, reconstructing the women's bathroom. The men's room used to be where the stairs is. We're proposing to create that as the men's bathroom. These bathrooms are actually, we have bathrooms throughout the building, but these are for like when you have a theater event going on that during the intermissions that they can handle the load at that time. Right here is this whole section of the building today is where all the mechanical systems are. So the boilers, are in this room, all the ductwork, the piping, there's even cold storage, it's still there, it's still cold there. And this room is full of just thousands of gallons of oil tanks. Part of this project will be to, actually as part of the abatement project, all the oil tanks and the boilers will all be we no longer will use fossil fuels proposal for this building. So we've now captured this space for a programming space. So at this end of the building, we are creating a technology room with a smart board, computer stations throughout the room. There will be a 3D printer, other types of printers. The idea of this smart technology room, it's not just for somebody coming in, which they could do learn, social media type programs or Microsoft Word or Excel. That can take place here, but it also can be used for the art program coming in graphic design and computers. The music, a popular thing with students today is using computers to compose on. And students can, anybody at any age, can come in, compose, and we can have a sound system in this room where they can, the students will just listen to their composers with other people and critique it and have social discussion. Again, this whole point of this building is to foster community interaction and innovation and creativity. We have here, as Oakley mentioned, a game room. So children and teenagers and young adults or even grown up to the game. There's a room that has TV monitors that could have Switch or other types of gaming software that can come in and test out maybe the gaming software they created in the gaming room. I know Vassar College used to have an IT tech program that would teach how to create gaming software programs, and then the kids would test them out. And both might do something there, and they absolutely loved it. And so that's a great use for this space. Up here is the music studio. Music studio, again, is to foster creativity in the music area. We have a larger music practice room that can allow for even a piano, an instructor, and maybe one or two students. We also have a recording podcast studio space, a little recording studio. That space here, as Oakley mentioned, is if somebody wants to come in and record a video for their website or something, a public announcement, it's a great space for that. It can also, reaching out to Steve Zipper, the Millbrook School, the music teacher there, could be used for a small band practice. Because all these people will be acoustically isolated from the rest of the building. That's true. Recording studio for music practice. Music practice typically are. Outside here, it's kind of a music lounge area. It's kind of like where people can hang out and discuss. That's got, the guitar, got the amps, chords they want to practice with other people in the room. And one of the aspects down here in the basement is, I mentioned before, this is the men's room. We are taking over that space, completely demolishing everything, all the way up through the building. This is going to become the new egress air tower that's going to serve the entire building. So this allows us to demolish the fire escapes that are on the outside of the building. We're also incorporating a new ADA elevator that will go from the basement all the way up to the third floor for access. Now we get to the first floor where the bottom breaks up is happening. The main existing auditorium that's there today is, again, it's going to be a multi-purpose auditorium. What we're proposing is not having fixed seats, but theater seating that the other seats before it actually works together to create a theater arrangement that you see here. It can hold up to just about 205 seats. And we're going to propose redoing the stage. Right now, the stage ends right about here. And what we're suggesting here, because this is really just like a high school, I shouldn't say that, it's more of a middle school performance stage that's usually used for graduations, so it's singing or doing a variety show. It is not a full performing arts stage. So in this configuration that you see here today, we did thrust the stage out to create a bit more depth to the stage. This is one alternative, and there's a third one I'll mention later. To create a more professional stage. We do have here in the corner, because we didn't want to break amps in the auditorium, we do have another elevator here that will get somebody up onto stage if they need get there. But it's also serving more than just accessibility access to the stage. This elevator is actually going to serve the caterers. So for theater people, for bringing things up to the stage. So the caterers down in the kitchen below would actually come through the room I showed earlier to this elevator and bring the food carts up and serve this space in when it's an event set up for a gala. So now they can bring up the food and take out the food, and they can even from this elevator. And it also serves as bringing the tables and chairs when they're switching back and forth. They use this elevator down to the basement, which is sort of in the basement for the furniture. The other aspects of the floor plan are, again, this is the main entryway, which is going to be restored. But the main lobby that's there today is going to be cleaned up and created into a gallery area, which is going to extend this classroom today. It's going to become a more formal art gallery space. We also have a space here, we're calling a meeting room, that's also been served as an additional gallery space for larger exhibits. So the table control moved out, and additional artwork could be displayed in this room if so needed. The, off of the theater, we are creating we call it a cafe, but it's not gonna be a cafe in the sense of, there's somebody stationed here and you can come up and order a sandwich. This cafe is more of another gathering space outside the theater or for the building users. This concession stand is more of a on demand. So when there's an event in the theater space, a gala or performing arts, such as music or a movie, this concession stand can serve those events. But during the regular day, when the auditorium, actually switch back to this slide. So when this is not being used and it's just after school time, this can also serve as the information desk for the building. When somebody coming in, there'll be a person stationed there to answer questions. And it can be also where the security cameras are, that can be monitoring the building. So it's kind of a multi-purpose space for the staff of the building and to help people. If somebody wants to come in and ask about renting out a WeWork space office, that could come to. So this here, there we go. This is what this is our community workspace. These are everybody in the library, in the main room. We have these 2 classrooms in the library, but these could be similar. These could be fully enclosed classrooms with a desk and work area. Where on this side we're actually proposing more like workable carrels that are not enclosed. And again, we're proposing a little potential little meeting in the center of the little glass box. So somebody can have a small meeting, say renting out one of these spaces, and somebody, client coming in and they can meet at this room. Again, another social gathering space for workers if they want to discuss something. We also have a common counter that have a coffee maker, a bottle of water, that is the workspace we have. So on the second level, right now there's
Hey, Michael, may I want to just add that we do have bathrooms on every floor.
yes. So as Larry just mentioned, we did not just bathrooms, bigger bathrooms downstairs. We incorporate accessible bathrooms on each level. And also here we actually snuck in another smaller single user bathroom right there. Again, sticking with the bathroom, we have a bathroom up by the elevator here, and then we have another accessible bathroom down here. Right now, the Thorne building has 3 classrooms, and this is actually a masonry bearing wall right here, so it's actually all built off the floor here. What we're proposing is actually to remove these load-bearing walls and install structural beams at these 2 locations. What that does is create an enormous, a very large, flexible event space, which could also be broken down again with movable partitions that are acoustical, creating smaller classrooms with lecture hall space. And so one of the things on this, again, not just the theater, but upstairs, if somebody wanted to have a wedding, gala, it's a secondary space that could happen again, because there is a demand for that type of space in this area. So it gives flexibility. And going back, the other thing that we would like to do is install the flooring in here would be a wood flooring that would be on I'll call it a Yorkton type system. It's actually answer points that go on not so much springs, but resilient flooring sub-base that allows for dance practice. So one of the things that we'd love to have is if somebody wants to practice each dance lesson or dance student wants to come here and utilize these spaces, they can also be used for that. Right here, we have another seminar room for meetings. We have a table and smart board. But this seminar room can also be used when you have a social function in this room. This room would end up being a kind of like with a catered stage for serving food to the event. So they don't have to all down in the kitchen. It's really helps with the flow of the building. Again, this wall here is a solid wall today. What we're proposing is opening it all up, creating some more seating area that kind of overlooks the opening to the stairs of this center hall. Right now, the building has stairs that go up to the third floor right here. Which we no longer need, because they're also too small for the pilot code. So this space will now become the projection room. Battery power on the pointer. So in the center there, that's a projection room for showing movie theaters in the space. The adjacent to it is a sound booth with actually open to the space so that sound technician can actually hear what's going on in the space live. So you can adjust the sound. So this is really kind of the control spaces for the theater, maybe it's a movie or a live performance. Up here is where we're proposing to have the management, the director's office. So up on the third floor is where what we'll call the Thorne building management is really located. So that's where the bookkeeper, the different staff that needs to book events, the event organizer, fundraising, that would happen on the third floor. There's also other additional offices that we can utilize too. And again, in meeting rooms, and bathrooms. One thing that we're introducing here is in the third floor, if anybody would remember being in the building, there's actually a skylight up on the roof that's existing today. What we're proposing is creating a circular hole directly below that skylight and laying a glass light in that right there at table height. That's going to allow light to filter all the way down to the basement. Because right now that center core of the building is very dark. So this will bring natural light all the way down. And one of the fun things that we're proposing is in that glass etch the village of Millbrook like plan, street plan. So when you look up, you actually see a map of the village of Millbrook or Millbrook, but something that has to do with the community. So it's not just this glass. We have a little map there. This is a section through the building. It's showing just a cutaway of what we're proposing. One of the things in our design was minimize, I mentioned taking down the whole walls, but really what we did with this design was utilize all the existing structure of the building to really minimize the changes inside. So we didn't have to reconfigure the building all that drastically. Our office is starting to look at what the interior may look like. These are just in development. These are our in-house so-called design studies of the inside. They're by no means final. What we're showing here is that's the existing staircase that goes up to the second floor from the main lobby. Right now, this is a solid wall. We're actually recommending taking out that solid wall, putting large steel, so it's very open and airy, sliding glass doors here. So most of the time it can be open, but if there's an event, there's two different events going on, and we need to slide those closed. Either operate another event going on somewhere else, it can be managed by the staff. Also, we're introducing glass here where that information section stand is. So that person that's stacking this desk and see both entrances for security reasons. Who's coming? This is just a glimpse of the glass over the workspace. This is a picture, for shortened, but of the, we're proposing the bench here, the banquette, with, this little French cafe seating. There's a concession stand. This will go clean up. There's the existing, all this is actually, this will go all existing. It's there, over preserving. There's the glass inlaid flooring that we're preserving. Which actually brings light down into the bathroom. It's pretty neat. One thing I want to mention too is our design team. It's not just Thorne architects doing this project. We assembled a unbelievable, highly professional team that's backing us up. We had Dan Conley on the lot. I know Dan is a local structural engineer in the project. But right here we have Altieri support Weaver. Altieri is a mechanical engineer for the project. Altieri is probably one of the top 10 engineering firms in the country. They do all the most prestigious museums. They just finished the build up the art museum. A lot of the MoMA museums in the United States. They do a lot of big university projects. They just did the PGA headquarters engineering. I mean, they are probably one of the most prominent engineers. Fantastic work. We brought in consultant engineering who specializes in restoration and facade improvements as the engineering firm behind the restoration of a building facade. They specialize in, again, large civic projects down in New York City, in the whole Northeast, all the way to Boston, restoring historic buildings. From an engineering viewpoint, we have belongs to the building conservative conservation. They're conservation consultants, so they're the ones that actually, again, another renowned firm that's done. They just finished doing Yale's library and a lot of other Bennett museums down in New York City. A lot of big projects they've worked on. So they're the ones that actually get into the how do you clean the brick, how do you match the mortar. We're missing a piece of stone. Where do you source it to match exactly? Where does it come from? So the preservation of the exterior of the building is to be really dictated by Sullivan Engineering, Wonsky, and us kind of as the captain overseeing them. We have Bennett Planning and Design, a landscape architect who does a lot of university work in terms of the landscaping. So there, while our office is doing the hardscaping, that's what I presented there in terms of the band shell, the grading, parking lot. They're going to be really focusing on, what are the trees that are being planted? How often are they? What is the plants that are going into the community gardens? And what is the drainage that we can make them survive, the soil types? So they're going to be part of, providing that total service for the project. So Who School of Engineers, Alvin and Tachi is from Boston. They specialize in theaters. They do major theater projects throughout the United States. I work with them at projects at Wellesley College, MIT, for their theaters. They are also not just theater consultants, they're also community AV. This building is going to be, as they mentioned, high technology. Every room is going to be Wi-Fi, the ability to broadcast stream forward from all the major rooms of the space. Even in the theater room, we're talking about if there's a concert going on in New York City or somewhere else in the world, we can project on the screen in the auditorium. And so you don't have to go down to still all the auditorium. It's streamed right here at one building, which is becoming more and more common, especially in COVID has actually accelerated that process. Here we have Dan Bishop, our food consultant, it's all here tonight. So he's helping us out on the whole kitchen and kind of the event, how that all happens in the building. wonderful, for my help, actually, lay out that kitchen I showed you earlier. That was his expertise, and is going to continue on with us. And again, in terms of asbestos, we had requests, quality environmental solutions technologies are out of Fishkill. They're going to be doing the same thing that Kevin was talking about for the Thorne building. They've already done their testing report. They're the one that put together the bid package for the abatement of the Thorne building. I do want to expand on a little bit, just like Kevin said, everything they're doing, we're doing here at the Thorne building. And as you mentioned, yes, the containment is within the building. This building is not, it'll be air monitored, but this building is a self-contained project. We're not having to demolish, obviously not demolishing one building. It's all removing floor tiles. Probably the biggest expense in the project is the plaster, unfortunately, in the building tested positive for asbestos. So all the plaster has to come out of the building, except for a couple of spaces that testing it. But that's probably the biggest expense. But the good thing about the Thorne building is, well, unfortunately, it costs money. It is a contained building, and it's going to be more traditional, simpler process to abate the building. So the concept is, we're going to take down those walls, but it is an opportunity, though, to bring, when we talked about earlier about electric technology, now that we have the walls all open, we don't have plaster walls, this is plaster, right? Actually, plaster tube with brick masonry in this building. There is no space for electric wiring. So by removing it and pouring it out with metal studs, and then recladding it with plaster and sheetrock and things, material that look similar to what it is today, and putting the trim back in, it allows us to rewire the building, replumb the building, tie the new sprinkler system that the building is going to be receiving for safety. So now it gives us the opportunity to hide everything. So when we put the building back together, everything is in the field. We're not going to have conduits and things exposed running on the surface. So it is a good building opportunity in that sense. So it is a big plus. And love to take questions. Sure.
Sorry, I got another one. Given the unreliability of our local broadband, how are you especially broadband?
Well, it's interesting. So interesting enough, I was the architect for Verizon on the little Verizon building that's on Friendly Avenue. They just installed a whole new, this is just one option. There's lots of options, obviously there's cable, but Verizon just upgraded their whole internet service. It's not out in the street yet. That could serve the Thorne building. And it's the speed that you would never realize in the Thorne building. Needed. And then there's the technology out there in terms, even Optimum's upgrading fiber optics and things of that nature here in the village. So we'll be able to meet the demand load, and as in terms of the service to the building. Once in the building, combined with Ulterior Seaboard and Reaver, their IT department combined with Calvin and Tachi, their audiovisual department, they will design a Wi-Fi system in the building that can handle the loads, the demand that's needed, how many access points, and the levels like of different types of access to the internet. This will be a pretty sophisticated system. Go ahead.
How are you gonna heat it?
So it's a great question. Thank you for raising it. So I mentioned earlier, we're taking out all the boilers, the oil tanks, and all that stuff. So the goal here is actually to drill wells in the lawn area and also in the parking lot to do a ground force heat pump system. So the geothermal system is one of the most green things you can do. It's going to be electric based, but it's much more efficient than the oil tanks and the boilers that are there today. And it'll also allow for heating, cooling, and we'll also be introducing a ventilation system with ERVs, which is energy recovery ventilation ventilators, what that is there, as the building's gonna breathe, but not just breathe, but also when the building is ventilated, the air that is being exhausted from the building, the stale air, it's gonna go through a heat exchanger, and the heat is gonna be extracted from the air and re-pumped back into the fresh air coming in, so minimizing the energy waste of just having an exhaust system. When I say energy recovery, there's also controlling humidity too. So it's not, so if it's hot, humid day outside, it's gonna strip the humidity out of the air before it goes into the building, so the AC units, heat pumps for the ground source don't have to work as hard. When the air is drier, it's cooler, more comfort. So that's going to be the basis for the HVAC system for the building. So
Address moving the
yes.
moving it around, can you address the now you're projecting the
It's the problem with plants is plants don't really work. It contains down directly, it's mass. So from a acoustical viewpoint, we do acoustical studies, well, I hire acoustical consultants to do studies, but I see the results where plants do not stop sound transmission. Distance does, mass does. I mean, if you really want to stop sound transmission, you actually have to build stone walls, build the earth. By reversing the man shell and pointing it back uphill, which is actually pointing directly at the parents' house. So I'm gonna get it first today. But by pointing up the hill, the sound going into the hill, that's what we're directing, into the mass of the hill. Which is where you want to, right now, it's actually the worst case scenario. But the band shell facing out towards Franklin Avenue, the sound is going towards Grace Church, towards the residents' houses, and actually going above the people, the users, on the hill, looking up at the band shell. So we're actually going to be improving the acoustics of today.
So I know it's dependent on the capital impact, but once you secure the money, do you have any sense of how long this will take or any insight on the timeline? But sorry, one more like detail question.
Sure.
With the flexible seating, because the floor can't be raised, assuming plus the banquet hall, will there be raises for sidelines for the chairs in the back?
So for the theater, risers, portable risers, which we've done that for theater. We did that for Black Box Theater at Boston College. We did it for Half Moon. Exactly that. That's one of the things that we are looking at. Actually brings me to the third option I didn't discuss earlier, and the 1 million extra that Oakley brought up. So the theater itself is not finalized. We truly make a performing arts, kind of a higher grade performing arts performance hall. The stage I mentioned earlier is not deep enough. Really address that. Several things would have to happen. There'd be more dramatic, acoustical, better treatment in the space. There would be, and probably the biggest extent would be an addition out the back. Actually, we'll go back to the site plan. So right here, you see this green lawn? If we brought the building back to that, basically that line of where the parking lot begins, that provides about 20 more feet of stage depth. That stage depth is actually critical in making a more better performing arts stage, because that allows, right now, if there's performance on this shallow stage, there's no crossover. So when a theater performance takes place, the actors or moving the scenery around, they can't cross over. It would have to take the elevator down, go to the basement, and then come back up the stairs. It's not realistic. So building that addition, which is just be a simple, literally a brick box out the back. You don't want to compromise the historical architecture. Thinking about building, it's just a blank brick wall in the back with two small windows. But that addition would also be fantastic for creating a proper green room. So anybody who knows about theater, you really want to have a green room that serves for the actors, especially if you get a main performer. That main performer is going to want their own room, their own bathroom. They're not going to want to track down the basement hallway and use the public bathroom. So by adding on the back of the building, and creating a proper green room, dressing room, and more stage storage space would dramatically enhance the performance aspects of it. That's all you're going to.
Robert, president of the Historical Society. And this was immensely grateful that the building was going to be preserved and all the designs you've done and the mock-ups you've done look lovely. I guess my initial reaction is it seems beautiful, but generic. It seems like the kind of thing that we could be in any town or any village, other than the external shell, right? The preserved and original school building. I guess what I'm worried about is that we're missing an opportunity not just to preserve a building integral to the Millbrook's history, but to actually use the structure to help teach community members, visitors about that history. I didn't see anything in there of museum space for the Historical Society or exhibit space. It seemed very flexible. It seems like it's a place where very wealthy people could have a wedding if they chose. But I want to be able to connect this in some way to this specific. I think most people don't care about this, but our archives, which are an absolute treasure, with material going back to the 18th century. It's that stuff. Some of you have visited. They're now in the basement of the village hall. In the village, they're gracious custodians, and we're very happy to have that space, but it's not climate controlled. It's not accessible in any way. And I just wish we could use this once in a lifetime opportunity, not just to preserve this building, but to preserve more of Millbrook's history, be able to share it with the people who are interested.
I mean, we talked about this as a platform. We talked about this as a platform to partner with other nonprofits, other historical societies, certainly one of those we have to partner. So it's absolutely part of the conversation. Thank you. Yes.
About the water table and how this might affect the high water table from Millbrook, and if that's been.
No. So when you think about water table, and I mentioned the geothermal wells, these are what's called closed loop systems. They do not affect the water table. This project will not affect the water table one way or the other. The wells are actually drilled. And when I say closed loop, they actually have a pipe goes down, two pipes go down with a U-shaped connector at the bottom, and there's no interchange of the fluids between the groundwater and recirculated fluids for the system. So none of this whole project will have no impact on the groundwater or the water table. No, so when you so this design here, the aspects of the trees, the plants, our civil engineering firm is going to be, we're not allowed to discharge more than what falls on the property today. So everything that's I would say the technical side of it is treated on site before it goes off site. And again, it's that's just part of New York State laws and regulations today. For projects like this.
Okay, we're past our time. Let's take one more question, if we can, and then we'll wrap it up. We appreciate everybody coming out. We love the feedback. You can go on our website and there's a comment section there, Thornville, it'll be Thornville website, right? We are going to be launching a new website. I don't want to talk too much about that, but we will be. And these presentations will also be available up on the website. So you'll be able to pick them up. It's kind of hard to see some of the detail here. Just look at it more closely. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead. We haven't really thought about that yet. Yeah, everything else. It's a good idea. So we'll consider it. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody.